it is the most incredible coloring you will imagine. The contrast between that bright red and their black feathers is really beautiful. It's difficult to see this little green patch unless the sunlight's perfect. Good. As I was saying there before we took a gamble and tried to show you that bird, was that the cheetah have already finished their duiker kill and are on the move again, but not quite tending west enough to come onto our property. But I just thought I'd update you that they have finished their kill, and it's interesting because cheetah do have to feed very quickly. They know that leopard, hyena and lion, all three of them will try and steal kills from a cheetah. So they are at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to the predators. Also spotted a mushroom growing out of a pile of elephant dung. Awesome. And there'll be a lot more mushrooms and various different fungi popping up now that there's some moisture in the air, and they're going to help to decompose and break down a lot of the dung. We'll see a lot more mushrooms sprouting out of elephant dung. To be honest, that actually made me a little bit hungry. It looked delicious, but be warned, you've got to be sure you know what you're doing when it comes to buns, because they're toxic to us. And we'll just carry on. Stream has been lost, but now it's back.
Welcome back, and we do apologize for some of the technical gremlins that seem to have attacked us. We are working on it and working on fixing everything. It seems to be all up and running. And we've got some friendly neighborhood giraffe here on Triple M. I was actually following the sound of squirrel alarm calls, and we just happened to bump into these three. Hello, big girl. Look at that long tongue. So wonderful when you have views like that. You can see their long eyelashes. And of course, those are such an important defense mechanism for when they're walking through the bush, to try and make sure that they don't poke their eyes in any way. They do feed on trees with some rather vicious thorns, and you can see how she's tucked her head right in there. So it's important to have an extra level of eye protection. And the wonderful thing that you can see as well is that the sun has come out. And I think we're all very happy to see some sunshine after 2 or 3 rather gloomy days. Not gloomy, but definitely cloudy and cold. And it's brought with it quite a breeze, which is blowing pollen around. And I'm not sure how Genre is doing, but I've been sneezing all morning. Spring has definitely arrived. They are such entertaining animals to watch. Still sitting quietly, just listening to hear if I can hear those squirrel alarm calls again. It all seems to have gone quiet. Triple M. And just to let you know, when I last saw you, we were with the hyenas, but they had disappeared into a very, very thick part of that block, and they were settled somewhere down in there. I didn't want to go crashing in after them to try and relocate them, so we left them alone for the morning. At least we've got lots more time at that den site to look forward to. You hear the wind coming through, I think just spelling the end of that cold front we had. Actually, along the back of her leg there, let's just have a look at the inside of her. Oh, I think she's going to shift around. I was just looking at all of the ticks that were plaguing her, and I'm quite surprised that these giraffe that we're looking at haven't got any oxpeckers on them. Sort of notable by their absence. Usually you see quite a few of them. Even yesterday with that very, very young baby, we saw lots of oxpeckers around them. I'm not too sure where they've vanished off to. Look at that beautiful mane of hers. Well, Georgianne in Illinois, welcome as always to the Sunrise Safari. Georgianne's picked up on the fact that she's got that injury on her neck just towards the base there. And Georgianne was wondering if females will ever fight each other, and if not, what it was that could have caused that injury. Here we go. That wonderful, graceful walk of hers. For the most part, no, females don't. They might, if another female got a little bit too close to a young calf, the mother might respond by kicking out or lashing out, but they don't fight in any way to defend territories in the same way that males will fight each other for females. So very peaceful animals. That injury on her neck probably came from a very small scratch or something that became infected, and also probably not helped by the oxpeckers, who will not only pick ticks off the skin but also keep injuries open and stop them from healing, and sometimes even make them a little bit bigger. And the other thing that's a possibility is giraffe are quite prone to skin diseases. Some of them get something along the lines, it's a variation of the herpes virus that causes polyps on their skin. What I want to do is shuffle forwards. Oh, no, never mind. We've got these lovely cross necks. There's lots of them around. We've got the 3 on the left, and then there's also some more tucked in the bushes off to my right. A lot of them are targeting the brand new green leaves of the knobthorns. And I know that I've mentioned this a few times, but imagine what a treat it must be after eating some of the leaves that are green throughout the winter, although there's not that many, and then dry leaves. It must be so nice to get to the nice green shoots. This one's taken advantage of a knobthorn that's been pushed over by elephants. Let's put it nicely within her reach. And it's so hard for us to fathom how they manage to eat something like a knobthorn. And I've been stuck in knobthorns so many times. They have the most incredibly cruelly hooked thorns that do a wonderful job of piercing the skin at the slightest touch. And yet somehow these giraffe, their mouths are so tough that they can wrap them right around, strip the leaves away with their tongue. Quite phenomenal. Hello, big girl. Now, what I actually wanted to have a look at, there is a female off to the right who is very, very dark. She's going to walk now towards the other female, so hopefully she'll come into the open. But we've spoken a lot about aging giraffe by their colour. I just want to have a look at her as an example because she's not that big. Even for a female, to me, she looks quite small and she actually looks quite young. But she's very, very dark in colour. And it's an interesting note to remember that although it is a general rule that giraffes get darker when they age, here she comes, it's not always a steadfast rule, because there can be genetic variance to that as well. Because look how dark she is compared to the others. And she doesn't look that old to me. She looks quite young. She's still fairly short. I mean, short is all relative when you're a giraffe, but fairly short for a giraffe. A duet of black-collared barbets. Such graceful animals. The big bull, who's with this group, is slowly coming in our direction. I'm hoping he's going to make his way out into the open. Just off to my right here. He's quite a large male. I saw his tracks as we were, or at least I think it's his tracks, as we were driving up Vuurtela main access, and I noticed he did have very large feet, but just as a size comparison, he is absolutely massive. Shuffle backwards a little bit, see if we can get a slightly clearer view of him, because he really is quite an impressive specimen. But also I just want to have a look at the way that he walks. Now we're a little bit far away from the usual area where we see him in, but there is an old giraffe bull about this size, although this one is particularly massive. But there is an old giraffe bull that we've seen a couple of times on drive who's got a rather broken looking ankle. It's very swollen, he can't put any weight on it. And Teresa, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering if I'd seen him recently. No, unfortunately Teresa, I haven't. Not for a while. I'm sure he's still around though. He's quite big and more than capable of defending himself, even with that broken ankle. This bull is absolutely huge. He's not even just tall, he's really stocky. He's got an enormous head. And they do continue to grow throughout their lives. But this is quite an impressive specimen we've got here. He's probably, just a guess, I would say he's in close to 20 years old. And that head of his probably weighs somewhere close to maybe 10 kilograms, possibly even more, which is 25 odd pounds. You can imagine that kind of weight swung at the end of the momentum of a long neck. It will have quite the impact. Now I'm going to have to just pull off the road for the moment, just to let one of the other vehicles come past. although they seem to be stopping to look at the giraffe as well, so we can maybe stay here for the moment. Okay, let me just shift out of the way for Doug. Let him come past. Morning. Good on you. No, nothing that we found. Just the hyena den.
I know they were looking for shadows not around Triple M.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know that Scott was heading in that direction, so I'm sure he'll follow up.
Alrighty.
Cool. Enjoy, guys. Cheers. Just getting an update from one of the guides, Doug, who works at Simbabili. And he's mentioned that Sindile, or Shadow's cub, they were having a look for him somewhere on Arathusa around Triple M, between Triple M and Parallel Road. Now I know that Scott was in that area. There's been a lot of coming and going with young Shadow's cub. Have a look at this big guy. He really is quite enormous. I know he's straight into the sun. I know that Jarly commented that you could probably walk straight under him. I think I probably could actually, if he'd let me. I don't think I'd want to put myself within kicking range of those legs though. Those kicks can be incredibly powerful, so not only swinging that heavy head of his, but they can formidably kick, and they can kick backwards and they can kick forwards. So giraffe are definitely not a defenseless animal. Since we've got this perfect opportunity, or we had this perfect opportunity, I'm hoping is going to stop so we can continue having this opportunity. We've got a really nice look at a big bull here. And Donna, in Canada, you want to know how you tell the difference between males and females. And just quickly, since we have a female head, oh, she's disappearing, and then the male head, have a look at the horns on the top of their heads in comparison. This big bull, he's got really, really thick ossicones, as they're officially called. They're very thick, they're very strong looking, and they're also rubbed bald at the top. We can't see it so well now that he's walking into the sun, but we could earlier. The males have their ossicones rubbed bald, there's no hair on top of them, and that's from using them as a fighting mechanism. Whereas the females are much thinner. They look very much sort of like they're not really weapons at all, and covered in tufts of black hair. And that's one of the big things you're looking for, especially when this is the only view of a giraffe that you have, which is quite common, especially as summer approaches and it starts to get a little bit thicker in the bush. Then the other way is size. There's a considerable difference between a male and a female giraffe in terms of size. The males are probably about 1.5 times the size of the females. They're much, much bigger. And then there is the obvious way. And in giraffe, that is very clearly obvious. The male's testicles are external, so not like something like an elephant or a rhino or a hippo where they are internal. They're external, you can see them very clearly. And if you look at the rounding of the belly, there's a penis sheath that's very clear. So if that's the view, if you can get a nice view of a giraffe out in the open, that's probably the best and easiest way. But then start to look at the shape of the head and the extent of the bone deposits on those ossicones. If they're big and thick, and especially with older males, if they've got that big lump in just above and between their eyes, if that is quite well pronounced, then you're looking at a male. If it's thin with covered in tufts of hair, then it's a female. One of the easier, nicer animals to tell the difference between the sexes. Gets a little bit more tricky when you're talking about something like a blue wildebeest, especially with young males. that can look very similar to females. But giraffe have made it nice and easy. Now I'm peering into the bushes to see if we can get another view of them, but I think they're going to remain tucked away. Let's give it one last go. Take Power Lines Road. Partly because I want to check, but also partly because Triple M is quite a thoroughfare in terms of traffic. And there's lots of oncoming vehicles, so let's try and avoid them and hop onto Power Lines Road. Oh, it's very bright and sunny. Makes such a nice change. Let me get a better view. I'll stop here so we can do a nice comparison. Okay, well, we're going to leave you these giraffes for now and see what Scott's Impala are up to. We'll catch up with you later.
Welcome back. And Jamie's doing a wonderful job finding all the animals this morning. Vim and myself have been less fortunate, but that's how it goes. We shot up towards the northwestern corner of Djuma as we had reports of monkeys alarm calling in that area, but when we got there the monkeys were all at peace and couldn't seem to find what it was that got them disturbed. Vim, there's a little morning challenge. There's a raptor floating up in the sky above us, and a beautiful one at that. I got a brief glimpse. It looks to me like it is, oh, it's a male battalier. As it turns around again, if it does, try and look on the underside of its wings and you'll notice that it's half black, half white. One of the easier birds to differentiate the genders between. The female will have a very thin black stripe on the trailing edge, unlike this one, and the majority of her wings will be white underneath. And because they've got such short tails, the battaliers, you'll notice how it's kind of teetering from side to side, and that is a very good characteristic to look for when you see a raptor flying. If it's teetering as much as this one is, you'll be able to take a guess that it is in fact a battalier. Beautiful. It's one of my favorite things to watch. Eagles soaring above us. And while we watch it soar above us, we can answer a question from John in California. He's desperate to know of any updates on Junior, a young male lion in the Nkuhuma pride, and any other members of that pride. And sadly, John, they haven't been seen for quite some time now, and I'm not too sure where they are or what is going on with them. So sadly, no updates there for you. If any of you have heard of where the Nkuhuma pride could be, or a portion thereof, the last that we had heard, that actually split up. There were 3 lionesses seen together, and Junior was seen with one of the younger lioness on Sibambili, but that was probably 4 or 5 days ago, so not too sure, sadly. We're also hoping to get an update on their movements and where they are, as they are the pride of lion that we have seen more than any other pride, and the fact that we don't know what's going on with them is far from ideal, but that is attributed to the tiny piece of land that we can drive around. We don't have free range on, and that's what limits us in our ability to be able to follow the stories of the animals that we see, because they are simply elsewhere. Usually, I mean, we get good updates from the guides at the surrounding camps who can traverse properties where we cannot go, but none of them have got any updates on the Inkomer, so I'm guessing maybe they've headed further north into Buffelshoek where there's less vehicles driving around, or possibly even further north from there into the Manyeleti. It's so wonderful to have the sun poking out through the clouds. It's been almost 2 full days of overcast weather, and this is the first of the sun that we've seen, and all the plant life is going to make the most of this opportunity to get some photosynthesizing in. There was a long-tailed shrike, or a magpie shrike, that we saw temporarily. Oh, we got lucky, found it in a little gap there. Great work, VM, on camera. You can't confuse this bird with anything else out here. There's nothing that looks similar to it. Very long tail and that white window on its wing, and you can actually hear them calling. Not that one, but there are some others around us calling. You may be able to hear faintly. Time to peel off a layer. Not doing a very graceful job at the moment. Finally, it is off. It's incredible how quickly it's heating up. On the topic of lions, a question through from Eddie Abbey, and I'd like to know if any of the lions in the Sabi Sands have ever been collared for monitoring their movements. And not that I've ever seen, Eddie Abbey. The only animals that I have seen collared within the Sabi Sands are elephants and a buffalo, both of which would have been collared in the Greater Kruger National Park and are simply wandering through their massive home. But that's not to say that lions have not been collared here. It's just in my 4.5 years in total of being here, I've never once seen a collared predator. Sounds like that could change though. There's a chance that some dealer might need to get collared to monitor his progress after the whole rabies and inoculation scandal, but hopefully we will get more information and light on that topic in the coming days, so we can fill everyone in on what exactly is the plans and protocols that need to be followed to ensure that he is okay. But the Sabi Sands management did mention yesterday that there is a chance they would need to collar him. It would make our life very, very easy in finding the animals, having collars on them, but it would detract greatly from the excitement of having to track them down ourselves. And I'm more inclined to leave animals without collars or any radio transmitter, unless of course it's for a good reason, and research on animals is certainly a very, very good reason to collar them. animals. So rather than me yabbering on, we're going to send you to see some action. Enjoy.
Welcome back. And no matter where I am in Djuma, somehow the elephants seem to find me over the last 3 days. I certainly wasn't looking for them this morning, but I'm also definitely not complaining. There's nothing like having an eddy coming through to say hello. I saw two when I first pulled into this sighting. Now I've only got visual of this young bull. He looks very familiar. I'm starting to think he might be that young bull that we spent some time with yesterday afternoon on the sunset safari, who quite happily came right up to the vehicle to continue his baboon tail snacking. I think he's going to do the same now. The wind might be making them a little bit unsettled. It is incredibly windy. Here comes the second one at the back. Oh, elephants are always such a nice surprise. I think I'm going to have to switch hats. Mine's attempting to fly off my head. There we go. Nice and out into the open. Looks like two young bulls. Yep, definitely. Now, I'm not sure where the rest of the herd is, but I did get a very strong smell of elephant when I came round here earlier. So these two are probably just following behind. They're right at the cusp of that age where it might be time to start separating themselves from the rest of the herd. He just used his tusks there to shift the broken log out of the way so that he could get down to the fresh stuff underneath it. Oh, big boy. I got asked yesterday about how you know an elephant's relaxed, and I mentioned a lot about reading their body language, and these two are perfectly relaxed. But even that slight swing where he shifted his body in front, he shifted his body round to look at us, that's just a little indication that these two, I think, have been sparring, and he wanted to let me know he's aware of my presence. Two young teenage boys off on an adventure together. One in the front has got very, very long tusks. He's going to be quite big when he grows up. And they're definitely moving fairly determinedly to the west. I think that could well be where the rest of the herd is. I didn't see them, but that could well be where they are. Let's try and loop them quickly and get onto the road ahead of them. There is Impala Road just there, so let's see if we can get round in time and get a nice view of them from the front. What a nice surprise. I've had a couple of very illy-filled days over the last few days. Are you gentlemen going to stop there now? Looks that way. They've decided that there's food worth snacking on in the middle of the clearing. We don't have to loop them, we can just go up to them. I've had to abandon my hat in the interest of not having it blow straight into the elephants. A lot of perennial plants that have just started to sprout again. And the elephants have been taking full advantage of that. Off he goes into the block to join his buddy. Very fast. Imagine how much ground they can cover, and that's quite a gentle walk. I mean, he's not running, he's walking with purpose. Just imagine how fast those strides would take him and how much ground he can cover in a day. Easily 20 kilometers. Those enormous strides, probably in terms of distance from one track to the next, they probably cover, I don't know, about 2 meters if they're going fast. We tend to forget how fast they move because they don't look like they're hurrying along, but with those long legs it happens very quickly. Okay, let's just hop onto the road and loop them. I want to see how they react to the impala as well, or how the impala react to them. Coming through a whole herd of impala that's immediately scattered out of their way. And I have seen elephants before. I have seen them chase impala just for fun, just to keep themselves entertained. They didn't stop to do that in this case. They're still on their mission, probably to catch up with the rest of the herd. Definitely see the purpose in what they're doing. They stop to feed every now and again, but very, very briefly. It's almost like grabbing takeaways as they move. Food on the run. In South Africa we'd call that potkoos, I suppose, which is road food, literally translated. Just grabbing snacks whilst they continue on. I'm sure they're trying to catch up with the rest of the herd. They were probably distracted having a bit of a tussle. Nope, this has been a good place to stop for now. Not for long. You can see the restlessness in their body language. They're on a mission somewhere. And stay with them for as long as possible. They're approaching quite a thick block that we'd have to quite possibly go around. Let's see if we can stay with them. Maybe just loop around. They've slowed down their frantic march. Not frantic march, but they have definitely slowed down their march. So let's see if we can get around them. Just as we watch him strolling along, Sharon, who is on Twitter, has made a comparison that I didn't ever think I would hear, but I think it's a brilliant one. And she says that the elephant's walk reminds her of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, which I think is a valid comparison. And now I'm never going to be rid of that image. Oh, nice! Scott has got a family of warthogs to show you, so let's look at them and be back with you later.
Well, from very large grey beasts to a lot smaller ones, look at how awesome this is. I don't think I've ever seen this many warthog in one sighting with all of you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm guessing these are the same 9 that gets seen at the Arethusa airstrip. We're not hugely far from there at the moment. And it's in all likelihood 2 mothers with their piglets from last year. They've both been incredibly successful. I'm just going to reposition quickly. They've both been incredibly successful mothers, being able to raise all those piglets, and let's hope that they continue to be successful with their next litter that they should be giving birth to shortly. It'll actually be interesting to look at the adults to see if they are showing signs of pregnancy, but not quite yet, it doesn't appear. It's one animal that I cannot wait to show you. Tiny newborn piglets. They're incredibly cute and good quality entertainment. They often race around chasing one another, squealing with excitement. And at this time of the year, there's a lot of change in terms of food availability for the herbivores, so we will find a lot of animals moving around, and we'll have some newcomers on the property shortly. Now I'm interested to hang around here because this is the area that we saw some dealer in yesterday, a young male leopard, and imagine if he manages to catch one of these little warthogs. Obviously it'll be bittersweet because we'll be happy for him, but not so fortunate for the warthog. But he was last in this area, and he quite often does hang around in a given area for quite some time before his mother comes to collect him. So let's just drive around and see if he isn't here. Even if we don't see him catch one, we will certainly hear all about it. The warthogs let off very loud squeal if they are caught by anyone, so it's quite easy to locate on predators that have been successful warthog hunting. What's that, Djuma has spotted a sleepy steenbok, but I'm just going to reverse forward to show you guys. Oh, well spotted. Cute. Incredibly pretty little antelope. And this female's got her ears pinned back, probably because of the heavy wind that she's trying to avoid receiving. Isn't that pretty? Well spotted, William. Good work there. Just going to pull over here because there's a game drive vehicle on their way past. I don't want to slow them down to wherever they're trying to get to. Shouldn't be long before they shoot ahead of us. It's Ryan from Athens, and we're going to cut back to Jamie though while we continue scratching around for Sindila. Enjoy the Ellies, and we'll see you shortly. Morning, Ryan. Morning, everyone.
Here's the other one coming. Oh, welcome back. And at the moment, the best visual we have is of the rear end of the elephant. And I remember when I was working at the research facility I was at before I started working for Wild Earth, we used to have to go out and try and identify the individual elephants, and we were trying to update all of the ID kits of them. And for the most part, the parts of the elephant herd that you see the best are their bottoms, not their nice ears or their nice tusks. And eventually one of the interns decided that the best way of identifying elephants would be to spray paint bright pink numbers on their bottoms as a solution. Of course we never did it, but it can be surprisingly tricky when you're going out and you're looking at an elephant herd of 20 individuals or more in a thick block, and you're trying to work out who's there and who isn't. It can get very, very tricky. Elephants can be very unobliging when they want to be. I'm going to reposition now, since we have lost them. I'm really hoping that these two are going to have a bit of a playful moment. They've got that look about them. They are that right age where play fighting occupies a great amount of their day. See if we can't get one last good view of them before they disappear into this block. A bump over a log. It's quite incredible how much warmer it's got. Unbelievable. It's so nice. It makes such a big difference. Come on, Eddies. No, don't disappear again. And just to give you a better idea of what the weather's looking like and how Djuma's looking after the last 2 days of rain, let's cut across to our drone view and see what they're seeing, and I'll be back with you just a bit later. Welcome back, and how amazing is that view? Quite incredible what you can get to see from the sky. And we're still with our Ellie bulls. It sounds as though you had amazing stuff. You could see all of the cloud shadows, and they must be moving fairly rapidly in this wind, much like our elephants are doing. Every time we find a nice position, they decide to disappear off further into the block. You can hear the wind gusting. That does have a tendency to make a lot of animals a little bit more uncomfortable, and they tend to veer towards nice thick areas of vegetation to hide themselves away. I'm going to try and get a view of that Ellie who's just ahead of us. He's clearly had a dust bath. I want to just show you all of the loose dirt that's on his back. There you go. I think he's going to move out into the clearing there. Let's just have a look at him there. You can see how much dirt he's got on the top of his back. It's almost made that light colour. It's very clearly loose sand that he's been spraying up. And for Ellies, that's a great cooling mechanism as well as catching various parasites. I think it just feels good on their skin. Now the block that these Ellies are disappearing off into is getting thicker and thicker. And I'm not going to push too hard to try and stay with them, especially being as close as they are to the Triple M boundary. They're going to move across into Simbambili very, very soon. But also I don't want to go crashing through after them because I don't want to upset them in any way. With young bulls, they can be a little bit more nervous, not necessarily aggressive, just a little bit more nervous than the older bulls, especially when they're on their own like this. And they would probably just run away from us and continue to move away. Now Sharon from Pittsburgh, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Sharon was wondering if I've ever been charged by an elephant before, and I have. It's not an ideal experience. I've never had a full-on impact charge, so I've had a couple of serious warning charges from the vehicle. Probably the most trouble I ever had was from an elephant bull named Riff Raff, and I've mentioned him before on these safaris. He had a tendency to break into people's gardens and uproot trees, but when he was in must, he tended to be a little bit more aggressive than the other elephants. He was interesting because he was quite a short elephant. He was, in terms of tusk size, he clearly had some of the biggest tusks on the reserve, but he was just quite short and quite stocky, and he had quite an attitude. I wouldn't say attitude problem, he just had quite an attitude. And he charged me once or twice in the vehicle and turned him by hitting the side and shouting at him. And then I had one quite serious charge from a matriarch whose name was Dracula, and she was the daughter of the matriarch Kutile, which means the grumpy one. And Kutile was quite famous before her death for being an aggressive elephant, an aggressive female. And her daughter inherited, not, I wouldn't say aggression, but certainly her spiritedness. And Dracula charged me once. I was out on foot walking. I accidentally the elephants came up out of the river. I came into the clearing with the group of guests that I had, and we just kind of met in the middle and took each other by surprise. And she did come hurtling down the road, but it was a very noisy charge. His ears out, trunk flapping, lots of screaming, which can seem very scary, but I would definitely have been more on edge if she'd come quietly with ears tucked back. And again, actually with that sighting, I shouted at her and tapped my leg and then clapped at her to try and stop her, and she did stop, and then she kept coming. And in the end what I did, and it was kind of just an instinctive reaction, because all of my guests luckily was safely up on a rocky area, so they had really nice safe position, I actually dropped down onto my haunches. It was entirely instinctive in that circumstance. It could have gone either way, but she immediately stopped. It immediately took the threat level away from her. She relaxed completely. It's just that immediate submissive posture that she took to mean that I wasn't a threat anymore, and she turned away and she led her family away from us. And the only reason she was giving me that serious warning charge was because she was ahead of us, but the rest of her herd were kind of off to the side of us, so it was almost like we were going to cut in between them, and she wasn't happy with that situation, especially with young babies. And those are the charges that I've experienced, or probably some of the more interesting charges I've experienced. Now I do know that there was an elephant charge a couple of months ago, And you were also wondering if Wendy still bears the scars of those tusks. We're in jigger at the moment, but yes, Wendy does indeed still have 2 perfectly elephant tusk width holes in the side of her. I did hear about it, and I have seen the video of that particular incident. Fortunately, still nothing has happened since then, but an important reminder. I always look at those holes and just use them as an important reminder as to the power and the respect that you need to have for the elephants out here. Our bulls have disappeared off into the block. I'm just peering in to see if I can see them. I can hear them moving off. It seems as though in all of the excitement we've all lost complete track of time, and we seem to be drawing to the close of the sunrise safari. I had absolutely no idea. I would have been quite happy to keep prattling on for the next few minutes. But a brilliant morning. We've got time to spend with those hyenas, which is so exciting. I'm enjoying that tremendously, and I'm so happy that we've relocated the den. Anyway, a big thank you to Jean-Ray for all of his fantastic camera work, especially with hyenas darting everywhere and then practically trying to climb into the vehicle with us. And a big thank you to you, the viewers, for all of your questions and your interactions. That's what makes these live safaris so much fun. And to the lovely ladies in FC, I still haven't managed to get "I can see clearly now the rain is gone" out of my head. So thank you for that at the start of drive. Big thanks to Jess and Nikki. Let's see what Scott's up to for the last minute of this sunrise safari, and we will catch up with you this afternoon.
Welcome back, and Liam and I spent some more time in that area hoping to find some dealer, but came up with nothing. Might be worth heading back there this afternoon for another check. A big thank you to Kathy Sparks for reminding us that the safari was coming to a close, otherwise we all would have forgotten and lost track of time. So thank you very much. We've got an awesome opportunity here to get eye level with a millipede. It's an absolute monster, and I'm going to say my thank yous and goodbyes now as we enjoy the sighting. And my first thank you is going to go to Jamie for finding all the animals and conducting the majority of the sunrise safari, as well as to Jess and Nikki in the final control room, Liam on camera, and last but certainly not least, all of you guys for joining in the show. It makes it so special to have you with us, and look forward to heading out this afternoon again. Enjoy the views of this millipede. Look at those legs, and we will see you all a little bit later.